It's about the system of government that we actually had at one time in this country. And this is very interesting because this book, talks about the kind of government that a free country has, but we don't really have this anymore. The Constitution was suspended through a series of actions, but recently through the anti-patriot bill, the suspended specifically the Fourth Amendment and Fifth Amendments. So and First Amendments, those have all been suspended. So basically, this has been suspended now. But if you want to see what a free country looks and feels like, study the documents in this, and maybe sometime in the future we'll be able to get back to it. The next book I'm giving away for free on my website is a book called Economic Solutions, and it talks about some things we're going to talk about tonight, which is silver and gold-backed currencies, and why it's important to have silver and gold-backed currencies if we're going to maintain a free society and a free economy where people are allowed to interchange value for value instead of fake money systems like we have right now, which basically really disrupt the societies by basing certain things are supposed to think certain things are given value which actually have no value, like the paper currency that's backed by nothing, instead of the silver currencies, which are backed by something real and physical and actually took real work to make them appear. And the third book is called Uncommon Sense, and this is written by my friend George Humphrey, who actually has another show on this station called Common Sense. And this book talks about the origins of the New World Order and how they're affecting our lives and what you can do about it to change things and make things better. And those are the books I'm giving away for free on my website, realityexpander.com, right here. Just go to my website, and they're all free. Tonight we have a couple special guests, but the first guest I have is Corey Cordes. And if we can get to change the angle there.
Mystery guest.
There we get the two shot. There. Okay, I need to change the camera in here. Yeah, Jeff. So we're going to be talking about economics tonight and the spirituality of money. And I'm just going to go ahead and let my friend Corey talk about that.
Okay, well, to start with, people know very much how near and dear the monetary system is to Chris's heart and how much he goes into the different aspects of it, and how basically we've been hijacked, I should say, by some hijinxers as far as the current condition of money. And most people will tend to think of money in a negative way because of a lot of things that have gone on with our monetary system, and they realize the history of the monetary system and why it's gone downhill, and it's not really representative of any real value. If you understand the idea of the fiat currency, which doesn't have any backing, and the idea also of fractal lending, which allows them to print endless supplies of money that comes from nothing, really, out of thin air. And so by virtue of that, there is a lot of money in circulation. But I would like to comment on a few places where that money lies right now. And I'd like to interchange with you a little bit, exchange with you a little bit as well. Some of the places that I think about money being now would be like in the religious coffers, many of the trusts that we're aware of, certainly with the military-industrial complex. And this money is really under the control of the banking institutions, the lending institutions, and that is a very few individuals.
Well, I mean, one of the things that gets confusing is you're actually talking about credit, which is the fake money system, and those things are under control of those people. But the real physical money is still mostly out of their control, which is why they hate it so much.
Right, that's a good point. But as far as
they have
people
credit.
are concerned, right? That's where the money would be considered to lie, if you will. Money, there isn't really any money in these areas, like you're saying. It's just represented by, a mark or some kind of computer cipher or something like that represents the amount. Just in our bank accounts, if you go to the bank and ask to withdraw your money, they're not going to be able to have it there on hand for you. They're going to try to, appease you in some way, but they don't have your money there in the bank. And so that's a big misconception.
Well, even if you ask for your money, I mean, the cash paper is not money. It's a representation of money. And they're faking us out the whole time.
Right. You're getting double duped in that respect.
Exactly.
But money actually is, if you look at it from a spiritual standpoint, which I'm going to try to cover and give it a little bit of the esoteric science roundtable interpretation, it's basically like concretized energy that is kind of staying stagnant, or you can think of it maybe like a block of ice that's just frozen and it's not really circulating, and the water is not flowing from this ice, and basically helping out the whole body politic. It's not really flowing through the whole system. If you think of the blood, if it were to get clotted in some area, it's going to stay stuck in that area, and it's not going to be circulating through the whole system. And this is what we sorely lack as far as a real monetary system. We lack basically the distribution. Supposedly the money is there, and especially if we consider the fiat money, there's a lot of that money there, but the distribution is lacking. And that's why we see these great divides between the so-called haves and the so-called have-nots.
Well, I mean, it's not just the distribution, it's also the control and the manufacture of the currency is in the hands of basically a monopolistic entity right now, who basically has preserved the right for them to control what money is in the society, and has removed what money really is out of the minds of people using some very sophisticated techniques and nefarious shenanigans.
Well, money really has changed in a short amount of time, really since the 1800s, in the respect that it was more personal back then. I'd like to go into a little bit of the history as far as the Rothschild banking family. The father, Meyer Amschel Rothschild, who lived from 1743 to 1812, started the first branch in Frankfurt am Main in Germany, and then he had 4 sons that took over from him and spread it out further over Europe. And that would be Solomon in 1816, headed the Viennese branch, and Nathan moved the bank from Manchester to London in 1813. Carl headed the Naples branch in Italy in 1820, and Jacob Rothschild Paris in 1812. So you can see the tight time frame that these gentlemen were able to basically commandeer all of Europe through their banking system, a big time
The fake money
monopoly.
banking system, right?
Right, they're able to perpetrate that.
Extremely manipulative of people's psyches, using wars and rumors of wars to basically make the governments totally paranoid of each other in order to give up the link to the real money system in order to get the fake money system going, because of the manipulation of the psyches to war mentality.
That's a good point too, because who is always backing both sides? It's the bankers.
Right.
They stand to gain in either instance, and so they love war. They
Yes,
love
they
to
do.
start war. They love to instigate war. They love war and rumors of war.
They get a lot out of it.
Absolutely. But nowadays, money has really become less personal in the sense that everybody is involved in this financial system, whether it's fiat or however you want to look at it, because people have money through the checking accounts and through like IRAs, individual retirement accounts. They have money in mutual funds. People are investing heavily in the stock market. Again, people get money into trust.
But why are people in the stock market? It's because the inherent value of the fake money system is that it depreciates, and people realize that, hey, my money is becoming worth less and less. How can I keep this stable or make money so at least in the future I'm staying even? So that's why they actually get tricked, in my opinion,
But Chris, they're in it for the long haul.
into putting it into the stock market.
They're in it for the long
and then
haul.
it gets taken away from them through some very nefarious processes that are very shady and very dark.
Right.
So people's energy they're being convinced to give it up to someone that they really shouldn't be giving it to.
Well, they trust their financiers. They trust these money market managers. They trust that, I don't want to name names, but that this certain account is going to make me money. I made certain X amount of money.
But why is there such an impetus about making money? It's because the money system, the paper money system, is becoming valued less and less and less every single day because the governments are printing more and more and more of it, making it all less valuable. So people are looking for actually a safe harbor
supposedly
for their
wealth.
They're looking for a safe harbor that can keep their wealth and at least maybe grow it. And in the past, it's always been this.
True.
For the last 6,000 years of human history, it's been this metal that's been imbued with the creative potential of the society. But now it's been truncated and shunted and pushed over into this other type of system, which is this fake money system, which really is in my opinion a rape money system.
That's not a bad term for it whatsoever. But I would like to kind of get into some of the aspects of one thing in particular. Money, a lot of times, emotion factors in. And I would say in the instance of the 911 fund, you saw emotion take over, and there was an outpouring from the American public to want to contribute a lot of money, and they did. And there was so much money, it's unaccountable. There is no idea in anybody's real estimation how much money exchanged in that incident. And this is out of an emotional outpouring that people gave this money. Now, there is also an idea that money can be mentally moved as well, and this is something that I've talked to you about on a couple of occasions. and I'm trying to kind of get a grasp in my own mind. So many times the more spiritually minded people kind of shun money. They think of money as bad, and they don't really want anything to do with
the
money.
love of money is the root of all
That
evil.
the root.
Well,
that's
they
right,
always
the
forget
love
that
of money.
love of.
I have that written down. As
It's
a matter of fact,
people say the
love
root of
money.
money is the root of all
So
evil. No,
what
it's
is
the love
motive?
of.
What is the motive behind gaining wealth? What is the motive behind you wanting money? If there's an honest, altruistic motive for wanting to gain money into your life, if you need it for a real reason to help others in particular, I would say would be the best reason to want to draw money into your life, then certainly we have to get past the emotionalism of it and the desire factor into considering mentally and thinking through clearly and concisely what we can use this money for,
Right.
and to use the steps. And I'm still trying to figure these out myself as far as mentally creating a thought form, if you will, to allow this money to come in. Because there is plenty of money, even again if it is fiat, but it's just a matter of bringing it into your particular arena for use.
It's still, people still value it as an energy resource, and it's just an energy conversion thing. It's converting one set of ideas to another set of ideas. Like someone, okay, let's say there's an apple, someone who's making apples for a living. Well, there's a whole set of ideas about making apples that produces this product that is apples. And the money is the thing that greases it between the people who have the apples and the people that want the apples, the interchange mechanism, the currency, the electrical force that goes between it, that converts one type of creativity to another type of creativity using a standardized medium. That's what it's about. So when you talk about money is just a mechanism for transferring ideas back and forth.
I would agree. It is an energy in that sense. Very much.
But the wealth is the human creativity and the human potential and the human energies that are put into whatever system that create. The wealth is actually the products that are created, not the means that the transfer means. This is not really wealth. I mean, the wealth is the creativity of the human being.
That's a good point to make. I think that might be a bit abstract for some people to grasp, but yes, that's a good point to make.
Well, I mean, this is just a condensed form of energy.
Right.
Someone
Absolutely.
had to.
It's concretized energy.
Someone had to go out and mine it and then just melt it down
potential.
and put it into
this
coin.
Little coin has potential. It could be a new pair of shoes. It could be gas for your car. It could be any number of things. It's all potential that's inside of this little piece of metal here.
Right. The potential creativities that the society has inside itself, and this is a mechanism that says, hey, someone actually did work for this, and I want to get something that you actually worked for and put your creativity into. And this proves the fact that somebody actually did some work somewhere. And by using it in that way, we all know that people are doing work for work, as opposed to the fake money system, which they print for nothing and they get for free, which somebody like you has to use as if you actually did the amount of labor that they expect for it.
I only trade with Federal Reserve notes.
Right.
I don't have any kind of credit system. I don't have a bank account or anything like that. So these are also things probably I should consider too. But I'm so distrustful again, because it has such bad connotations and just a bad overall feel to it that I just really tried to. And you go to the bank and there are about 4 windows or 5 windows and there are maybe 2 tellers. They do those kinds of things very purposefully. I promise. That is all to frustrate you, to show you that, hey, you have to wait in line like a little slave to get what is yours. And we're going to inconvenience you as much as possible. And if you don't keep the proper amount in your account, we're going to take a little $25 hit there, and then it's incremental after that, and then they really start zapping you.
Right.
And your money can get stolen. I remember I had some finances stolen when I had a bank account once upon a weekday, and had to go through the trouble of getting it back into my account. So there's a lot of problem with that in my estimation, and I'm trying to find a way to circumvent all that I consider insidious about the monetary system and bring it back into a more spiritual realm, if you will, and try to think of ways that we can use money in a positive manner. Try to get that flow going back again, get the flow through the whole body politic.
Right.
One thing that upsets me too, for instance, like the agricultural subsidies allow for so much production of all kinds of crops and fruits and grains and vegetables, but so much so that a lot of times the farmers are paid to destroy crops instead of actually distributing this. Now think about how insidious and insane this is. There are people starving in this world, and we know this, and sometimes it's due to a dictatorial regime and the money's diverted. North Korea would be a prime example of that.
And those regimes were created with fake currency, by the way.
That's a good point too. How evil the whole loop is, the whole cycle is true. Good point to bring it back to that. But so let's say we could at least get this grain to these people in North Korea, really get it to them in some way. Would be my hope that somehow this exchange can take place in the future. And my hope is that in some respect we can incorporate barter, excuse me, in that respect in the future, and to allow that to come into.
Well, this is just a high form of barter. This is a barter element that's been popular with human culture, successful human cultures, for over 6,000 years. This money is barter, just a very sophisticated, elegant form of barter. And the reason why they use these metals is very historical and has very specific reasons why they want to use gold and silver as money. But that is the barter, and that will be the future
Because
of
to take it
economies.
back, even before the monetary system, this real monetary system, people would barter with any kind of things, trinkets,
And
seashells.
that was the replacement money.
Right.
That was the
but
currency.
Okay, I guess you can look at it that way. That it
It
is
was.
the same. That is the same.
It
I
is.
would agree with you. But I think that barter in the sense of, wheat for this, or, in that sense.
And it's usually been luxury items that are not necessary. That's been
where a lot of the money is
exchange.
going. If you really think about all of the extra money that people spend on all kinds of little knickknacks and different little frilly things, you stop at the convenience store, you want to grab a candy bar, this, that, and the other. If people could start considering putting some of that money to a more, again, altruistic or selfless service in some respect.
Or a selfish service.
How's that?
Well, here's the deal. Here's what I think a lot of the economics gets screwed up. There's this concept of greed. Well, there is this human drive of self-interest. We do live in these ego bags of skin that make us. We do have to survive in them. So there isn't this intrinsic thing that people need to survive. So they're gonna do a lot. Like for me, well, I had to get over this whole thing of being rich and getting money and charging people for things. But in fact, you're doing them a favor if you're giving them a service or a product that actually solves a need or solves a problem that they're having. People don't mind transferring the energy, the creativity, money back and forth if they feel they're getting something of value.
Right, that's a good point.
So it's about creating value and exchanging value.
True, and that is a perception of what something is worth. There's always a perception of what something is worth, and you could give somebody an ultimate discount on something, and they would be feeling like they were getting ripped off because they were not paying that high dollar in their mind.
The perceived value is a part of it.
Perceived value, exactly.
So
it certainly factors in.
But it's always a value for value interchange. Someone wants your product or service more than you want. They want the money. Which is what they are using. Most of these people who understand this stuff are using money as a tool to get them to certain goals, whether that be a vacation, whether that be a house, whether that be a new business. They're using it as we're teleological beings. We're goal seekers,
absolutely.
and we're trying to achieve goals. And if we can get help from other people in the society to get our goals realized, then so be it. That's great.
I think so too.
So it's all about helping people, and this is a mechanism that allows people to help other people in a very honest way.
That is a very
good
point.
That was really what the money was about.
Well, I commend you for one thing in particular. You have the means to be able to put out a lot of programming, and you are probably the most prolific person on Access, which to me is great because, like I told you the other day at the meeting, I benefit. I am very fortunate because I benefit. I get to sit at home and pay my $10 a month cable bill, and I get to have access to a lot of great programming via this gentleman in particular, and I am very thankful for the fact that you do that. And that, I would say, is part of putting that flow back into the whole body politic, sharing what you've gained and giving back in that respect.
Yes.
And to those that are given, to those that are... what is it? How does the saying go? If you're giving money, you have to give back. That's to those that give are given. That's the saying I'm trying to find.
Yes.
And so you find that exchange. Once you give, you find you get the comeback.
Right. Very big time. And I've noticed that in my experience in the business world, having a different attitude about what money is for has really changed my ideas about what business is about. And I think in our culture, it has been programmed through Hollywood that if you're interested in achieving monetary success, that you're somehow evil.
Right. That is a bad misconception.
And they've demonized the businessman or whatever like that. And that actually destroys us personally because America was created for individuals to take on capitalistic types of things. And capitalism, not in the state capitalism, but capitalism and individual capitalism for doing value for value interchanges for creative energy.
Capitalizing upon your own God-given gifts.
Exactly. And exchanging with your fellow humans in an equal footing.
Right.
And once I got that into my mind, and that was my goal, and that was what I was striving for, the abundance that came my way was overwhelming.
And it all just fell into place and locked itself into place for you, basically. That's good. I really am happy that it worked out that way. Like I said, I think we all benefit from it.
It took me about 20 years.
I'm
to
hoping
figure
to
that out.
circumvent that time factor myself.
Well, I'm trying. I'm out here. That's what I'm
right. Also,
for.
Esoterically, gold is the symbol for money. And as far as if we can picture a gold streaming substance coming out of these perceived locked-in places, where money is perceived to be. If we can picture it coming out and streaming forth into the body politic, that might be helpful as well to kind of consider it flowing again through the larger context, so that everybody has opportunity to take advantage of the system and to be able to benefit from it. Because we all have needs and we all have desires. It's just for a lot of people, we're not able to meet those needs by virtue of this money system, the way that we're locked into it, and the way that it slowly, like a vampire or like a leech, it pulls off and robs from us. And those in the stock market, if they've been in for the past 10 years or so, I remember I flipped out big time when the Dow hit 5,000. I mean, I almost did a backflip. I couldn't believe it. And then it went on from there, incrementally, exponentially. It blew up. And,
But again, that was, based on the fake money systems.
Right. What goes up must come down.
Well, these fake money systems have injected into those markets money that really shouldn't be there. That was stolen.
True indeed. But also the artificial manipulation as well. For instance, 29, it's been recognized by a lot of pretty well-established economists and financial minds that it was indeed, they yanked the rug out. They artificially created
that was completely manipulated.
Correct. And so that being the case, if people could become aware of that, not a small fact, a large fact, then they might be a bit more wary about the monetary system. They might be a little bit more cautious about putting their money, and again, trusting these money market manager types and just blindly saying, okay, here's my money, and they see a small return and they think, oh, everything's great, I'm making money. That's all they see.
And then when they lose it, it's like, oh well, I guess I'm not meant to be rich, or I'm not meant to have wealth, or I'm in it for the long haul, and you're basically giving your money to semi-criminal enterprises, in my opinion.
Right.
I mean, as soon as that GAAP, generally acceptable accounting principles, once that was passed in the 70s, that was pretty much licensed to steal at that point.
That allowed them to kind of cook the books in a way
to
show things a little bit not as
took
they
them
truly
completely. What do you mean not as they truly? They totally took them completely.
There's a lot of distortion.
No, it's not just not. No, it's complete distortion. It's complete distortion, complete lies.
Do you like seeing those guys hauled off in handcuffs, even though it's a dog and pony show?
It's pointless, because here's the problem. Hauling those guys away in handcuffs, unless you change the base system of the fake money currency and the generally accepted accounting principles, and if those things are left to stay in place, you just have more criminals coming up. Because they'll see how the system works and how easy it is to manipulate. I can see it.
Certainly.
I can see
you're
it.
a little bit, more suave than the average bear.
But it doesn't take much. It just has the understanding of the criminal mindset.
That's true, too.
Once you understand the criminal mindset of getting something for nothing, once you understand how that can be twisted and converted into huge criminal enterprises, it becomes very easy to see where they're coming from. But I don't know where I went with that.
Well, to revisit your point about...
just railing and ranting.
I understand. I know, like I said, I knew I'd be able to get you...
I just don't like seeing people lose, man.
Right, I understand.
Especially honest people who really did work for their money for real and didn't just scam somebody for it.
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
No,
that's... well, I knew I'd be able to animate you with this topic. That's why I wanted to discuss this with you. But also, people a lot of times do feel, like you were touched upon a second ago, that they're not deserving of money. And I had that problem for a really long time. Again, like if they lose it for the stock market, they're like, oh, well, that's just my luck. That's fate. That's whatever.
No, there's a criminal enterprise that stole it from you.
Right. There's a definite motive behind that yanking of those funds. And again, you touched upon the destroying of the middle class. That's been the goal for the financiers and those that wish to enslave us for a very long time.
Big major theme.
That's another thing.
Taking honest people's labor.
And also, people have the conception that, if they lose money in the stock market, or these businesses collapse and close down, just like there was some airline that closed, Vanguard. They didn't even tell anybody. People showed up today to get on the plane at the Austin airport, and they were like, sorry, we're closed. So, they do that kind of stuff, and it seems like that there's no purpose to it, but there is a purpose to it if we can look behind the scenes and see how these things are being manipulated. It looks as if the wealth is being destroyed. It looks like somebody's losing money.
It's being transferred. It's all transferred. Nothing is destroyed. No wealth is ever destroyed.
Just like energy. Energy is not destroyed, and money is energy. Exactly. Very much so. We're in the amen choir on that one, huh? But anyway, that's true. So there is no real loss of money in that respect. And when we lose our money, we can really see it and feel it. And we think that we can understand that aspect of loss. But on a larger scale, it's just a cipher on a piece of paper or on some computer somewhere that represents that corporation on paper.
But there are definitely goals behind these things.
True.
And
they don't
one of
collapse
the
for no
major
reason.
goals, in my opinion, is to reduce the effectiveness and the wealth of the middle class in order to keep the higher class or the upper class which are, not anybody that you know, not anybody that's going to be watching this show. Those people, it's their job to keep the middle class subjected, because if the middle class is able to get enough wealth together and get their energies together, they're going to topple that oligarchy.
Right.
And that is the number one thing that they want to stop. Is the ability, they want to stay in control as long as possible, and by subjecting the middle class to this incredible slavery for generations now, I think they've actually got it.
Well, it's going to have a dual purpose, and I will say this: if it gets to the point where there are so many people that are in abject poverty, and this economic system is they really pull the rug on it full-fledged, and that people are really forced to see eye to eye at all economic levels, from the so-called perceived wealthy to the really, really dirt poor. Then that will have a dual purpose in my estimation, that it's going to really get people to start seeing eye to eye more so, and it's going to get a conglomeration of people activated in that respect, that they're going to come together on these kind of things, and they're going to start saying, hey, wait a minute,
if they're not
the man's
working
out to get all of us.
If they're not working 80 hours a week just to make ends meet.
Well, you got to have to get your head out of the sand eventually.
And it gets a little tiring after a while, trying to keep the head above water. I mean, it's really hard to get someone organized when they're beat after working 15 hours a day at 2 different jobs just to make ends meet.
I understand that aspect
of it,
but I'm talking
hard
about
to
really,
organize people.
I'm talking about if there were to be a point where really there were people just mass homeless, they lost their home, they lost everything.
But they don't
weren't
have
going
to do that harsh. They don't have to do a hardcore depression
you don't perceive
like
being that way?
I don't think they have to do a hardcore depression.
Like
they could do a softcore.
Well, that's what I feel like they're kind of doing that now.
They're doing that now. Yeah,
They're
in my opinion,
there's
it's a soft depression,
right.
And it just keeps a certain level of people at just a subsistence level where they've got enough to kind of keep their entertainment going, but not enough to mount any kind of serious.
Well, that would be in their best interest.
Serious assault against the oligarchy.
I think that would be in their best interest, because that would keep the people pacified.
Absolutely.
Keep them in their same tunnel vision.
Absolutely.
Dull state, and so I think they would ultimately be able to gain in that respect. But I think things are going to change financially.
I hope so.
Sometime.
I'm working on it. Right,
exactly.
I'm
but
doing
I think
everything I can.
I think things will change, and I think people are going to come to more eye to eye on the whole financial thing, and that it will become more spiritualized, if you will, and people are going to start thinking in a more selfless manner. I'd really, that's my definite hope anyway.
And the selfishness comes in from the lack. The feeling of lack,
need and lack and desire, right?
And that's artificial, because the universe, I know for a fact, the universe is hyper abundant.
Yes.
And will give you anything you're willing to work for and need.
Really, if you ask for it, you'll
get it.
Abundant. So that's a bit, you have to be cautious too. If you ask for it, you'll get it. It's just how to ask for it a lot of times. That's the key. Your motive in some respects doesn't matter, because if you ask for things, you'll get it.
Right. So this whole lack thing, in my mind, is completely manipulated. And it's about us not thinking about money in a specific way that lets us attract more of it into our lives, because it's not about getting the money, it's about solving people's problems.
Well, yes,
and meeting their needs.
From the right perspective, yes. But then we get at this glamour thing too. We are overwhelmed by the glamour that we get through advertising.
Mind control programming, very, very sophisticated.
True, and that makes
types
us
of stuff that makes us desire things that are not going to make us happy, or are not going to get us further along as being free human beings living in a liberal, with liberty.
Right, absolutely. I definitely agree with that so much. That's right on. So that being the case, I just wanted to. I think you're going to have a guest coming up.
Yes, I do.
So I've had my 30 minutes. And
so, is there any other things you want to talk about?
Just wanted to tell people, not always, but if you want to catch my show, Esoteric Science Roundtable, I'm here Tuesdays from this studio, Channel 10. From 8 to 9, again, live every Tuesday. And
you were on just before.
Well, my tape show.
Your tape show was on.
It's been on so many times.
Yeah, we had some snafus. So.
Yeah, this should have theoretically been a live show, but
there we go.
One of these days. Hey, thanks again, Chris. I really appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it.
I'll talk to you real soon. Take care.
Our next guest, thanks for coming on, Corey. I really appreciate that. The monetary system is one of my big pet peeves, because it's just such a integral component that just it's the core of a lot of the problems that we have in our society, and it's really important to understand it to make different decisions about our country and our society. So I'd like to talk about just completely switch the subject and talk to Beth Borgman, my friend Beth Borgman here, about Elvis and some updates about what's going on with Elvis. And I was going to bring the DVD, but I actually bought the wrong version, so we can't play it here.
That's okay. Don't worry about that.
And this is a tape show, but we were going to take calls, but we
We'll do,
It's a snafu.
well, we'll do the
but-
calls the next time
Yeah.
and act like this is live. Act like the teenagers that I said, hey, I'm on tonight are going to watch. I have a new fan club, I hear. I also wore red and didn't know what
Excellent.
the background would be. I
Always
had no
blue.
idea you were wearing this.
Always blue.
So that's pretty funny. Good, we match. Well, I thought tonight what I wanted to do was talk about what I've been through since I was on the show last. And even though we're going to call this the Elvis update, I really, at this point, don't really want to talk that much about Elvis.
Okay. You can talk about whatever you'd like to talk about.
Lisa Marie will be part of what I'm talking about now, and the book and what happened as a result of being on your show a few weeks ago. I had more threats, and it brought in a lot of activity from federal agents that include the INS, the IRS, CID, the FBI, and it was so serious that a task force came to Austin via Reno, Nevada, and Memphis, Tennessee, and members of the Presley family came to Austin, Texas to meet with me and to discuss what I had talked about previously, not only on the air here, but also some of my stories have been picked up nationally. And the Dr. Hinton, the psychiatrist that took care of Elvis these past 5 years, his show has now been on Fox National and CNN and picked up with those affiliates all across the country. So there's a lot of attention on me right now with it. And it's real serious, it's real scary, but what I really wanted to concentrate on today is the problem that I've been having with my phone, the phone company, and my insurance company, because even though I told them that I wouldn't go on television or do a media junket about it, oh well, actresses tend to lie, I hear, or whatever. Anyway, so the deal is that after I was on the show, I received a phone call, again, another anonymous source, and it involved some government officials, very highly ranked, and I started having really a very difficult time on my phone, talking to people, talking to even agents, talking to members of the police department. I'd been having trouble on my phone for a couple of years anyway, ever since I did the International National Press Conference at Graceland in 1999. And the way I put this whole little thing together was in August of 99 is when I went to Graceland. That's when I first met with the Presley members and found out about how deep Scientology was at Graceland. And everyone told me, these are the things you should expect. We covered my drug setups, but the one thing that they told me that you really need to be aware of is the idea about your phone being tapped, wiretapped. And they said, you don't have to worry about the government doing it, because if they're doing it, you're not going to hear it anyway. But when Scientologists do it, they try to drive you nuts with it. And so the type of, for 3 years, the symptoms that I've been calling Southwestern Bell with were that I was having lots of hang-ups. It got to the point where they wanted...
somebody calling and hanging up.
Calling and hanging up, lots, like time after time after time. And then when I would call the phone company to complain, they would send somebody out, they would check the lines, they would say there's nothing wrong. I say, well, I know, but it's coming from people calling and weird noises and, click, click, click and stuff. And they would say, well, we'll do a tap on your line to see, and then they would charge me $8 for every hang-up. Well, after a while, when you have $500 phone bills because they're charging you $850 for every hang-up that they're going to try to trace, you'd rather call the FBI and say, aren't you guys cheaper than these people? Sorry, but they do have the monopoly, don't they? Anyway, so it got kind of discouraging. 3 years of 24 different Southwestern Bell people coming out to my house, trying to figure it out, listening on the line, and I would say, well, those aren't the symptoms, that you just hear. I would try to call Memphis. I would try to call LA. I would try to call Florida. I would try to call the long distance areas where my task force were members or part of the Graceland people and Priscilla Presley's people that didn't want the public to know that they were in communication with me. I knew people in Scientology were listening, and it was really upsetting because when you are an actress, writer, producer, and public relations for some high-profile people, lobbying efforts for some other high-profile people, you don't need to have a whole group listening. And over the course of 3 years, American media, the Inquirer, the Globe, Star, Examiner, we figured out at least 10 to 15 of the lead stories came from my mouth, just by talking on the phone saying, oh, Yang Yang, I worked with her, did this and what, and then And so if there are people who aren't supposed to be listening to your conversation, and you're telling federal agents, oh, well, these are going to be the headlines in 3 weeks, and they are, that gets your attention, that gets their attention. And I have had, for example, I was offered the lead in a full feature film that I'm really excited about that's going to be filmed in Central Texas, Austin, and Houston. And because of all of this problems with the stalkers and Elvis and the family and, my problem with the Middle Eastern person from India who's in the state hospital, by the way, we got 65 days of him at least being there.
Excellent.
Thank you, judges and
That's
county
amazing.
attorneys,
I
and
can't believe
thank
they
you
turned that
FBI
around.
agents, thank you police department, thank you internal affairs, thank you the whole police department who made sure that that happened.
Amazing.
Yes, we all worked together, the hand, the left, the right, and I walked the straight line with them, and they kept him there. So that's really
That's
good.
a good story.
But getting back to this problem with security, I kept warning everybody in the media, this is getting to be really weird, how I talk to you about these private things, and then there are the headlines. Michael Jackson has gone out recently holding hands with Al Sharpton, talking about how he's been betrayed by Sony and, Tommy Mottola and the whole deal, and, how it's racism. And, I had worked with a large group in AACP here in Austin and other people regionally, and it's not an issue of racism. It's an issue of Michael Jackson having problems with little boys. And, it's pretty unsettling when his CPA is giving my group his tax returns from the past 8 years that show, quite a few in the dozens and dozens of settlements of little, I guess I would call them pedophile cases. And that's why Michael Jackson doesn't have money anymore. I think he owes $200 million to Bank of America.
I've heard that.
Yes, and I was discussing that on the phone with some of the people who are involved in my case. And next thing you know, Fox picked it up and went national with, oh, Michael Jackson's broke, he doesn't have any money. And I kept thinking, gosh, when are they going to come out about the pedophile stuff? Because, I talked about that on the phone and with the federal agents. So they're kind of upset that the things I talk about are going out there. I've discussed things with the federal agents in Memphis that nobody should have known about. And next thing you know, the next day, it's news. And I've got this agent going, how did that happen? And so I would like to go full circle with what Southwestern Bell has done to my family. And Southwestern Bell, I'm sorry if your representatives see this show, but that's why it's live. And now I get my chance instead of having to spend hundreds of thousands or $1 million retainer to sue you guys, because you're almost as impossible to sue as Scientology. I almost think you two have a little link going, but I won't go there. Actually, you could sue me, Southwestern Bell, and then we'd have to go there. And then I could show all my bills, how every month, every day, my phone was disconnected by them, click, 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 couldn't call, and they wouldn't help me. They kept, the police were trying to help, organized crime, FBI trying to help, and they were the ones who wouldn't help. And it began with the cell phone. As an actress, you get what are called gigs, and you do commercials and television and full feature film and miniseries and whatever. And I got approached one year by a agency here in Austin, GSD&M. Roy Spence is the owner. He's very big. And they asked if I would play the part of Mrs. Jones, Keeping Up with the Joneses, for the national regional Nokia through Southwestern Bell. And so I thought, that's really cool, I'll do that. And it was good. I had a fake husband, fake teenagers. We had a perfect life, and we were able to keep up with each other because we all had a Nokia cell phone. And the first year that I did it, it was a very big success. It was a cute advertisement. It was in everyday, colored, black and white. And the next year, the same ad agency asked if I would renew the part of Mrs. Jones, Keeping Up with the Joneses. So we got my fake husband back, and he was back, and my fake kids. The only difference with this one, though, is that when I did the shoot, some of the representatives from GSD&M were there. And we were talking, and the Lisa book was now out, and I was pretty well known already about it, and they asked if they could have a copy. So I gave the agency people a copy and said, oh, I've actually met with your agency before. When the book first came out, I approached one of your higher ranked people to see if maybe you would like to do PR with me on the book. And he said, I'll get back to you. But then because of some of the threats and stuff, I decided to disconnect myself from GSD&M because I'd hate for something to happen to them when they're such a great agency. I mean, I think they are the best agency in the United States. Their things are amazing. Well, I was curious about the family plan. I was with Sprint. I'm now that, I'm the Nokia regional, I might as well switch to Southwestern Bell since, I'm out there touting them, and it seemed almost hypocritical if I didn't, so I switched and did the family plan. And 3 months into it, I could no longer use my phone, my GTE Southwestern Bell Nokia cell phone that I had spent $169 buying, and there were six of
Okay,
them.
just don't mention the prices anymore.
Oh, sorry.
Because pseudo-commercialism,
Oh,
but
okay.
just try and steer clear
They're
from
much
that.
cheaper now. So this is a few years ago, and I bought 6 of them. And the idea was that we had 2 for the staff, 1 for my husband for emergencies, 1 for myself, and 2 for the kids. And within a month of getting them, I started having cell phone trouble, and that was the beginning. That's when I realized I had been infiltrated, and I couldn't believe they could do this. Nobody could use their cell phone. It was bizarre. It was as if somebody was trying to call in either all day and keep us out. I couldn't figure out what it was. You know, I wasn't techno-oriented, but I knew I was spending a lot of time every month calling Southwestern Bell GTE saying, y'all, we can't call, no one can call us. We're spending all this money every month. I won't name how much, but it was a lot, way more than what a dentist can afford. And so they said to me each month, you have to do this, this, and this. Well, finally, I think 8 months later, I finally decided I'm going in person to these people. I'm not going to deal on the phone. I met with this woman, Janet. I won't name her last name. And I told her everything. She was blown away. I showed her the book. She was so into it. You can't even believe it. She was just like, she got her associates, Josh and John, and this is Beth, and this other person's Sherry, and their phones are jammed, and oh my gosh, and da-da-da, let's do something. And I showed her the phone bills, and that was the difference. And what did the phone bills show? I had 1 year's worth of phone bills, and each one of the cell phones was broken down by phone number individually, and it showed beginning at 9 in the morning until approximately 11:58 p.m. at night, 7 days a week, 24/7, and every week of the month for that almost entire year, somebody called into our system. And that's what blocked us being able to receive calls and call out. And we had to pay for it no matter what. You sign a 2-year contract. And all they kept saying was, you know, well, you have to, you know, you don't want your credit ruined, so you have to stay with us. But it didn't make sense because we couldn't afford really to get any other cell phones, but we couldn't afford not to because of the security risk. So that was a lot more money for another, you know, it got to be a little vicious cycle. And when I finally met with this woman, Janet, we set up a sting. And she gave me 2 cell phones with new numbers. And there was a detective from the police department present, and no one else got that number. My son and myself had those 2 numbers and no one else. 1 month later, exact same thing. 300 incoming calls a day per phone each day. Within 2 days, neither one of us could use the cell phones. So that means that my name, my social security, everything about me is in the system, and they can follow me. And it's not the government following me. It's the government's trying to protect me. It's Scientology. And nobody, you know, the government doesn't want me to talk about the big S word. Everybody's like, Beth, you got to lay low. You got to be quiet. But meanwhile, I'm going to be the one, you know.
Actually, you know, that laying low and keeping quiet thing is very dangerous.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't seem to work
No,
for people.
It doesn't.
And in fact, if anyone's having these kind of problems, I'd love to hear about them because,
Yeah.
you know, the only way to keep these guys at bay is to go public and let other
Well,
people know what's going on. So anyway, I just want to interject there.
Check this out, interject-wise. Can you imagine getting a phone call a little bit later from somebody saying, you should check your newspaper and read this thing on GSD&M? And what happened was I ended up one day talking to somebody at GTE and complained, and I said, well, I'm Mrs. Jones keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, I'm the national face for Nokia. So how can you not give me a little help when it comes to getting my cell phones back? From then on, they made the connection, and my life has been hell ever total since. I mean, those people, Southwestern Bell, who's ever in Scientology infiltrated in their little group, latched onto everything that they could. They sent me to collections, ruined my credit rating. They never took phone calls again. I was stuck with 6 cell phones. I had to, you know, start a whole nother thing with my 2 boys, you know, using different names. And the worst part was that GSD&M lost that account. And GTE Nokia turned into singular. I call it the asexual orange jacka mama wama, whatever. I mean, what do you call that thing? I mean, it went from Mrs. Jones, which was a face and kids and people who use cell phones, to this nondescript entity that the new agency who took over the account. GSD&M only lost one account that year, and it was the 200 million Southwestern Bell singular account. Isn't that interesting? And I never
Very
got called again
strange.
to be Mrs. Jones.
Very strange.
Yes. And then what really is interesting is, then at the same time, we had a problem with a worker who came into our office who we believe to be a member of the Church of Scientology. She embezzled $80,000.
My God.
We called up our IRS people who were right there with us. I will say, when it comes to government people, I know a lot of people in our group and people we know, Chris, have different opinions, but I love them. So they were right there. I'm like, open your eyes up to this one, you guys. And because I was very upset about the whole
That's
thing.
what it should be.
Well, IRS is a big deal, $80,000, so they gave us a year to pay that off. But at the exact same time that this person suddenly left our office with her $80,000 in her pocket, we were supposed to pay the Southwestern bill, which you pay, depending on your contract, and we were supposed to pay like $15,000 up front.
Oh
We were minus $10,000 in the account. She walked away. She'd embezzled. We didn't know that she had been taking our tax payroll federal, and instead of depositing them, she was putting them in a little accordion, and then she was taking the cash. And then she was telling us everything was great. The way Scientologists work when they suddenly show up at your practice with 15 years experience. I should have known she was from California. I should have guessed, but they.
Not all Californians are Scientologists.
She allowed me to. She was too good to be true. Right. She let me run to Graceland and do the press conference and make sure the kids were taken care of. She was too good to be true.
Well, you're paying her so well.
Yes, I was. I certainly was. Her hand was so deep in the cookie jar that the IRS CID is just hyperventilating over at this. Because can you imagine if every dentist in Austin had their office were taken over by Scientology, Sterling Management, and Sterling Management is the group that acts like they are a business group, but they're the Scientologists
and they're
that do this.
Sterling Management is an agency or a firm that helps manage dentist's office
and doctors, chiropractors,
and they're all based out of Scientology.
Yeah, and IRS-CID's already lost all of their potential earnings from the millionaire Tom Cruise, John Travolta's, because John Travolta gets to buy a $90 million jet with his, Scientology tax write-off, and then fly around for a couple of months.
Sure.
So, so why wouldn't the IRS be worried if suddenly Sterling Management is taking over little practices? And that's what they did with us, and I didn't even know it. And here I am, the biggest advocate and proponent, and I'm sitting here today, and Chris knows this whole thing. We're about to lose our practice. We're about to lose our house. But I got a quick government phone call today, so I guess they're not going to lose the house. They do intervene. But why should I have been through 3 years of this? Why should this person have come into my office, embezzled from me, and then have, suddenly Southwestern Bell, who gets to hear everything we talk about on the phone, suddenly our person with Southwestern Bell retired and left. And so the new office manager, who didn't know the routine, got the new one. Well, she never showed up. She kept saying she was coming and coming. Next thing you know, we've got a girl named Lori Correjo who's in El Paso, Texas, and they gave her 500 cases all at once 2 years ago, and it just overwhelmed her. And because of that, she couldn't give us our Yellow Page ad. First time in 21 years. So we have now had no Yellow Page ads for 2 years. All of this at the same time that they got, an idea of who I was and what I was about. So a dentist with no Yellow Page ads for 2 years, a brand new staff who's trying to combat these people from, taking over. And I'm calling Southwestern Bell saying, why aren't we in the Yellow Pages? And they're saying, oh, no, you should have been, but I guess, or you'll have to sue us. Well, I really want to sue Southwestern Bell right now, don't I? I really want to sue my insurance company for not paying out all the claims, about $60,000 in blown up cars, USAA. Sorry, guys, did I say that? Give me a call. Maybe the CEO can talk to me about what I've been through with you all. USAA, really good insurance company, but somebody from there needs to call me soon. Anyhow, getting back to Southwestern Bell. So without... Oh, sorry.
They can hear you.
That way the Southwestern Bell people can go back when they watch this, and the USAA people. But anyhow, so without the ad, obviously we had like half the revenues. The TWC, Texas Workforce Commission, they still wanted their money. They didn't care. They allowed us to do, the plan and stuff. The people who were the most understanding was the IRS in general. My agent. They put things on hold for us. They allowed us to come full circle with figuring out everything, who she was, what she was about. The thing that everybody in the government this week and last week were kind of amazed at is the latest Southwestern Bell advertisement. Have you heard that, Chris? The radio ad? Well, I think they pulled it now, but it went something like this. Imagine that my husband and I haven't had an ad for 2 years, and fighting it every step of the way. And imagine that in Austin recently there was a case of a doctor who wasn't a doctor, and he never had an ad in Southwestern Bell. He got his advertisements through like the newspaper or whatever. And they had a woman go in there and have a gynecological exam, and it turns out that it ended up being a type of rape. Well, it's a case. I mean, it's done with. He's going to Shang Land, good and all that stuff, but he didn't have an ad in Southwestern Bell. And that's kind of like what the premise of the newspaper was, he was a charlatan. And we haven't had an ad in Southwestern Bell for 2 years, and my husband has his degree and his certificate, and he's kept up with everything. But when you have a group that's just plain trying to stop you from communicating or making a living or whatever, and, I don't believe 98% of the company's responsible, but the 2% that's hired that are Scientologists, and whoever you are, you're good, because you sure have followed me. Well, you get them up in advertisement. So imagine this ad. I'm going down the street one day and I hear this radio ad playing on all of the radio stations in Austin, infinity. 104.3, you remember I told you Meredith and Jason, the Beat, 104, they're great. One of these days I'll go on their show. They're almost as good as you, Chris. Almost. But anyway, because they talk Scientology a lot, and they picked up on the book. They've got my book, and they almost got me killed a few times. And I called the manager and said, quit yapping about Scientology for a while, because I can't keep up with the punctured tires and the broken glass. But when I heard the advertisement on their radio, I just went, this is it. That's when I think I called you and said, you're not going to believe this, because I just couldn't believe it. So do I get to do it as an actress, the 60 seconds?
Sure,
so the audience,
as long as there's no prices.
Cool. So, patient in dental chair. Ow, doctor, you're hurting me. Dentist, shut up. Shut up. Voiceover, Southwestern Bell. If you are a patient in the dental chair and your dentist is working on you, you want to make sure that he is not an imposter. Ouch, doctor, that hurts. I said shut up, I'm almost done. Voiceover, Southwestern Bell representative. And you realize that if you are with us, then you are not an imposter. Because by being with Southwestern Bell, you're with the Better Business Bureau. And just because they take any check that comes into their front door, that means we're legitimate and so are you. Ouch, doctor, I'm telling you, it's killing me. The root canal's almost done. Root canal? I was getting a bleach tray. Voiceover. So remember, unless you're in Southwestern Bell Yellow Pages, if you're a dentist, you are an imposter. So, that was an interesting one. And I'm like, where did that come from? And, is this a moment of paranoia or not? I mean, so then I called.
You just had so many things coming at you. It would be hard to decide whether, what is this, coincidence, or is this really coming?
Well, they pulled it the next day.
And then all this stuff really started happening when you started exposing Lisa Marie and the Scientology.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
mean, all this, you were very normal. Nothing like this was going on. Didn't care about it. Just wanted to live your life quietly and do the things you wanted to do. But as soon as you started attacking Scientology, all these things started collecting on.
It was unbelievable. I mean, they broke into our dental practice. They would come in and do, everything about our case is so not mundane. And it's so bizarre that you almost think, the mental illness thing comes in like, paranoid schizophrenic. But nobody who's a paranoid schizophrenic gets the amount of time that I've had and the task force flying in and staying in my basement and doing voice analysis and polygraphs and taking over hotels in Austin with a lot of state troopers. It's too big, it's huge, and it's overwhelming for me. And I've decided that I need, the community to start just understanding this and listening and realizing you're all involved.
Absolutely.
If you are...
Yeah, this isn't just Beth. I mean, if these people can do this to Beth, they can do it to anybody.
They can. And I just go with the flow. I laugh about it because it's just like one more, what's happened since I was on your show last? Well, let's see. A little apparatus that looked like a mini bomb on my tire, and then some, I would say, paraphernalia of some sort on my tire with witnesses who saw it. Couple of invoices from January 8th on my tire. And January 8th, the only person I know born on January 8th besides my son is Elvis. And teddy bear floating in my pool, which is 3/4 drained now, which wasn't drained before, and has to be completely replaced.
Oh my gosh.
And a rabbit, so that was fun. And then just a lot of other things that I have to hand over, and I probably just said way too much as far as evidence anyway, but those are scary things. And
Somebody's really trying to frighten you.
let's put it this way, they frightened,
And hurt you, it seems like.
they called me with enough of a threat when Josh Presley was here concerning a lawyer in Texarkana that it was such a big deal that the federal judge involved recused herself in Houston, Texas, because she had been involved in the only civil lawsuit that was ever launched at Lisa Marie Presley with her, by her, for her, or anything to do with this case, came out of Houston, Texas. A lawyer by the name of Peter Pratt, who just out of nowhere called me up one day representing investors in the book saying, if we don't get DNA and we're going to sue. And to me it was extortion, coercion, but I went with it because I didn't have a choice. And the judge that was involved, who never did let the case go where it should have for 8 months, but there was a reason for that. And I believe that judge was probably listening to government people, and she needed to. And I think government people were listening to me from day one when this lawyer called me.
We've got about 1 minute left if you'd like to wrap it up.
And I apologize to the lawyer, but I did leave quite a few messages, so, you do make the bed you lie in. 30 seconds. If it weren't for the government, I don't think I would be here. If it weren't for the police department in Austin, I don't think I'd be here. If it weren't for people like you and your group who are courageous enough to put me on the air, I don't think I'd be here.
We're asking for it.
I plan on staying public and being public and just letting everybody know that I'm okay.
Yeah.
And that I'm handling it.
Well, yeah.
Not everybody needs Valium to get through a siege or terrorism. If you have enough people involved, like yourself and who know, you'll do okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Austin, and hope you watch the shows on Tuesdays at 10 o'clock, and if you have any more questions for Beth, we'll have her on again, and hopefully this will be live in the future.
Oh, it will.
Thank you again, Beth.
Thanks.